Super Seducer would like you to believe that it's the most controversial game of the year in this edgy product that doesn't play by the rules. But don't buy into the hype. This brand new pickup artist simulator is neither offensive nor edgy, it's boring and cheesy. It's a barely competent choose-your-own-adventure with terrible acting, questionable advice, and some of the worst video editing you'll see this year. Single guys deserve better than this. Look, I'm gonna level with you right at the top. I don't have a particularly high opinion of professional pickup artists. I'll freely admit that most of my bias comes from cringing through a few episodes of that VH1 reality series starring that guy named Mystery or whatever. His advice, while probably good-intentioned, I guess, always came across as mean-spirited and creepy. But in an effort to be fair, I decided to leave my preconceived notions at the door and experience Super Seducer in the spirit it was meant to be played. The truth is, playing a pickup artist is actually a solid setup for a compelling game. You could really go a few directions with this idea, such as turning it into a dark mystery about a guy who's in over his head after a seduction goes wrong, or turning the whole thing into a farce that isn't afraid to poke fun at dating in the 21st century and take the piss out of pickup artists in general. Sadly, this takes a more serious approach, attempting to turn what could have been a simple point-and-click adventure game into an educational tool. I have mixed feelings about this. Super Seducer plays out exactly as you'd expect. You'll get tossed into a scenario where pickup artist Richard La Ruina attempts to hit on an attractive woman by choosing the right things to say. You'll launch a brief interaction and then select from a series of options, including a few that are clearly designed to lead to you getting slapped or arrested. Depending on what you choose, Richard will chime in with advice on what you should and should not do. If all goes well, you'll get the girl's phone number and move on to the next scenario. In theory, you'll want to replay these stages a bunch of times in order to see the different paths and the responses. It's usually pretty obvious what direction you're supposed to go, but it gives you a chance to be a sexist pig without having a drink thrown in your face in real life. In total, there are more than 500 choices and a bunch of different endings. Between the 10 scenarios and the extra outtakes, there's a lot of full motion video here. Now, a lot of this comes down to how much you like watching the happily married pickup artist go around the city hitting on girls. I don't know, he seems like a generally affable guy who looks a lot like Ashton Kutcher and is quick on his feet. In another situation, where I wasn't watching him try to get laid, I bet I would find him charming and fun. But in the context of this game, he's definitely one of the weakest links. As an actor, he isn't especially charismatic. He doesn't have any chemistry with the women he hits on, and the presentation of his advice is flat. He also has a bad habit of stumbling over his lines. Here's just one of the examples.
Excellent, because this allows you in a smooth way to find out how serious they are in the relationship, because if they're very, very serious, you want to back off. If they're not so serious, why not keep in touch with the girl, keep her around, and who knows, one day when she's single.
There's a slapdash nature to the production that ends up making it come across as amateurish. I kept thinking to myself, this can't possibly be the best take. And even when he manages to get his lines out without stumbling over any words, the edit will still cut him off mid-sentence for no reason. See for yourself, and note that I did not edit this clip in any way. This is exactly how it ran.
No, too soon. I know there's this phrase about striking while the iron is hot, but in this case, it's better to let the tension kind of sit for a while and do it in a very smooth way, not kind of like, oh, she's kissing me, she's letting me do stuff, I need to take her home right now. Seems a little bit eager, a little bit predatory, a little bit aggressive.
Like I said at the top, there's a way you can take this material and turn it into something entertaining. Unfortunately, I found myself cringing throughout most of the scenarios. The writing is wooden, and the conversations aren't even close to being interesting. Even when Richard and the girls actually do have chemistry, it's impossible to root for this guy because you know all he's doing is saying what she wants to hear. The whole thing is disingenuous and insufferably boring. It's also aggressively cheesy. There are times in Super Seducer where it reminds me of the kind of self-help VHS tapes you would see in the 1980s, complete with two half-naked women who are thoroughly disinterested in what's going on at all times. And I don't blame him, because the advice he's giving is questionable at best. And that's the real problem here. It would be one thing if Super Seducer was nothing more than a really boring conversation simulator, but this game is being sold under the guise that it's actually educational. Look, there are times when Richard stumbles into a good point and offers some genuinely constructive advice.
Winners don't do drugs. Apart from the Olympians that get busted for steroids and stuff. But in general, you shouldn't do drugs. Unless they're legal where you live. Or if you go to Amsterdam. Or don't do drugs.
But the game loses me the moment it suggests that no matter who you are or what you look like, after playing this game, you'll be able to win the girl of your dreams.
No matter who you are or what you look like, after playing this game, you'll be able to win the girl of your dreams.
Yeah, I'm dubious. Personally, I wish they would have turned it into a fun fictional adventure game where it subtly imparts dating advice. But instead, it's just an out-of-date self-help video that takes itself way too seriously. Visually, Super Seducer is a sharp-looking full-motion video game. While the acting and writing may let us down, the camera work is always on point. They do a good job of composing shots and giving us a bunch of different angles, all without resorting to shaky cams or other cliches. It's a shame that the good-looking shots are wasted on such boring material. The problem with Super Seducer isn't that it's the most controversial game of the year, as the advertising would like you to believe, but rather that it's the most boring game of the year. Aside from the occasionally entertaining clips of watching Richard fail, most of this game revolves around inane conversations that'll put you to sleep faster than horse tranquilizers. Hitting on women should never be this boring.
That was uncalled for, man. Very rude. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Hey, thanks for watching our review. So here's the question of the day. What do you think the story should be for Super Seducer 2? Based on what I've heard, there's a pretty good chance that Richard may end up watching this review, so let's give him some constructive advice on how to make a more compelling sequel. Let me hear your ideas for a fun story that'll liven up the franchise. In other news, I'm currently hard at work on a bunch of other reviews, including Past Cure, Yakuza 6, and more. While you wait, I recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.